It's the Round Ball Rock Podcast, starring Dave Schilling, Michael Milken, Ivan Volsky, Joey Devine, Michael de Guzman, Richard Whitney, Bernard Evers, Sean Keane, Bernie Madoff, Patreons, Silky Johnson, thank you Silky, Max Stanley Williams, thank you Max, musical guest, new writers of the Purple Sage, and now the temporary host of Round Ball Rock, Joey Devine!
Hi, it's me, Joey Devine, your temporary host of the Round Ball Rock Podcast, and we are back with a brand new episode that I'm going to say is a big one. Sean, wouldn't you?
Oh, it's a big one.
That, of course, is full-time permanent co-host of the podcast, Sean Keane. Sean, how are you today?
I'm good, doing well.
Before we get to our guest and the return of a fan favorite feature, I just want to say, shoot us an email at roundrockpod@gmail.com or tweet us at roundrockpod. Patreon.com/roundrockpod is, of course, our Patreon if you feel like supporting us that way. You can also support us non-monetarily by just giving us 5-star reviews. It's weird they only let you give 5-star reviews on iTunes, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
They only let you give 5-star reviews on iTunes.
It's crazy, but it's true.
As for, look, things are hard right now. We've been talking about it a lot. So I have picked a new charity for us to encourage people to donate to this week. That is, of course, Selah, Selah, which works with homeless communities. And we would, especially in Los Angeles, and you can donate to them or just donate time or stuff at SelahNHC.org. And if you don't want to do Los Angeles, find a homeless outreach program in your city that isn't fake or full of scumbags and donate to them. Sean, we have a big guest this week.
We do.
Yeah. This is, I would say, one of the godfathers of NBA blogging, correct?
Absolutely. It's interesting. We've occasionally, I would say this is comparable to the first time we had Kelly Dwyer on, where it almost freaks me out a little bit to be talking to somebody that I've been reading for, more
half
than
your
a decade.
life.
Yeah, exactly. We're both big fans. He's like on it. It's rare to have like a basketball writer and you can say like, oh, this guy's a pioneer. Mm-hmm. This guy's a pioneer.
Yeah. We are, of course, talking about Mr. True Hoop himself, Henry Abbott. Henry, on TrueHoop.com this week, put out an extensive timeline of the Tilman Fertitta family history. And we realized, we've got to do a Tilman Time. And it actually has to be good this time. So we brought Henry in. Sean, it's Tilman Time.
It's Tilman Time. That's right. Texas Tilman, Trump supporter, steakhouse man, and billionaire buyer. Houston Rockets motherfucker. Tilman Time.
How does Tilman describe himself?
A motherfucker.
Tilman Time.
All right, it's a big one here. An extended Tilman Time with one of my favorite basketball writers of all time. We have from True Hoop, Henry Abbott. Henry just wrote a giant piece on the family history of one of our podcast's favorite guys, Tilman Fertitta. Here he is, Henry Abbott. Henry, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you guys?
We're doing great. I've got to say, I've been learning a lot about the Galveston mob. And I sort of regret starting a segment of a podcast where we solely make fun of the fail son of the Galveston mob. I don't.
Yeah, no, it's a hell of a story. It really is. It's funny. I thought, like, you don't often hear these kinds of allegations, right? And when you do, you usually, like, as a reporter, it ends up being unreportable. I didn't know that everybody knew this except for me. I didn't know that, like, every issue of Texas Monthly apparently has a rundown of the history of the Galveston mob and the Fertitta family. It's just like, and everyone from Houston and Galveston emailed me like, yeah, bro, we've known this for 100 years. and everyone outside of Galveston and Houston is like, oh my God, this is insane. So it's the weirdest secret non-secret I've ever encountered in my life.
Yeah, we mentioned it. We have a recurring feature called Tilman Time,
which is currently on.
The exploits app. It's happening right now.
Feels kind of nowish, yeah.
And I was shocked to learn about it, and I had the same impression. Like I just saw someone make a reference to it, and I started looking it up, and it was just so open that it was like, yeah, his cousin was skimming money off this casino. Everyone knows that, and it was incredible. Like I thought I said it almost jokingly, and then learning more about it, it was like, oh no, this is a well-known, established mafia family, and he's still in the same city, throwing a giant Tony Soprano style Cinco de Mayo party every year.
And they made the movie Casino about it.
Yeah.
All right, so before we get deeper into your amazing article available on TrueHoop.com, let's talk about how Sean and I started talking about Tilman. So I worked at the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company for 8 years. And was there when Tilman Fertitta purchased it, and the first thing he did was start charging us all $5 for the right to have an employee discount. Mm-hmm. It was it was a $5 charge a month.
The discount upcharge.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. He would charge us $5 a month to have an employee discount, which at the time was infuriating, but now that I learn that he's a member of the mafia, makes total sense. It's like a protection shakedown.
Yeah, you are protecting your shift meal. Well, also, it's like it feels very Tilman Fertitta. It's a restaurant that's on the wharf. Mm-hmm. Salvatore and Rosario Maceo, is that how you say it? Maceo? I don't know.
I think it's Maceo.
Yeah, Maceo. That would be my guess.
I don't know for sure.
But they had a fish company as one of their legitimate businesses, so it made a lot of sense.
Somewhere I read that part of the business analysis here was that you can get a piece of salmon, the same piece of salmon that if you try to sell it next to the freeway, you charge $8 for it. But if you're next to water, you can charge $20 for that same exact fish. So like a lot of his businesses are near the water, which means one of the bond investors was like, he's incredibly vulnerable to climate change.
Well, and also, if you connect that piece of salmon to an Academy Award winning movie starring Tom Hanks, you can charge, plus it's next to water, you can charge $35.
Joey, did you always have to ask trivia questions about Forrest Gump at every table?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we definitely had to do that. In fact, I would say that part loosened after Tilman took over. But what did the second thing he made us all start doing is trying to sell our tables Landry's cards, which are essentially casino player cards, but for Landry's owned restaurants.
What do you mean? I'm confused.
Like, I forget how much it was. It was like $20 or something. But you got, like, bonus points. It might have been free. I don't remember. But it was, like, bonus points that you could, if you went to Houston's and then the Rainforest Cafe, they would like give you, you know, a suite at the Rainforest Cafe if you spent enough money. The other thing he did is, so this was in San Francisco, and San Francisco at the time had started, they were offering healthcare for anyone who worked in San Francisco. So most restaurants would just post like a little thing on their menu that was like, hey, this is 20% more because we're adding healthcare to, we have to pay healthcare for anyone who works in the city. But Tilman,
but generally it was like $1 on each.
Yeah,
chart.
it wasn't even that.
It wasn't
much.
even. Yeah.
But Tilman Fertitta was so infuriated by this, he actually threatened to close all of his restaurants in the city of San Francisco because he said he couldn't charge people more, even though it cost nothing. It was basically a tax that the diner was paying. It cost him nothing. But he's just so against poor people getting health care that it infuriated him. So when he bought the Rockets, this predates him buying the Rockets by like 7 years, and I had determined this man was my lifelong enemy. And then I had a basketball podcast, and he bought the Houston Rockets.
He had it coming, basically.
Exactly, yeah.
He pissed off the wrong guy.
It's a person. This is about revenge for me, not morals.
Yeah. That's very mafia.
Yeah. You're holding. You have a life grudge against him.
Yeah.
So let's talk with you, Henry, about where you started with the Tilman Fertitta thing. Like, you said it was an open secret that only you didn't know that he's a fourth-generation mafia man. Where did you first hear said open secret? Well, I don't want you to burn any sources or anything, but how did you start digging into the Fertitta family?
Well, so I had written some stuff about other owners, right? I wrote this big Prokhorov series, and so I had and a few other things. I had kind of a reputation as like a anti-owner guy. I don't feel anti-owner. I feel like we should report on owners like we do on
absolutely.
players and stuff. But so somehow that gets you on the phone with like a friend of people who want to wax poetic about this or that. But I ended up on the phone with like some guy casually used the phrase fourth generation member of a mafia family. He said it very casually as if like it wasn't a weird thing to say. But I was, of course, stopped dead in my tracks by this. It just wasn't what I was expecting. So I was like, wait, what? And he's like, oh yeah, look it up. Like that kind of thing. So I did what any good aggressive reporter would do, which is I just sat on it for like 6 months and just forgot to do anything about it. And then at some point I was like, I should look that up. And like, if you look at the article, I didn't really write anything. I just researched on newspapers.com, and these are just the things like if you have a subscription to Texas Monthly, all of this. Like it's been reported again and again and again, including earlier this year in Texas Monthly. Just all of this incredible family history. And just to be super clear, like I didn't come across anyone saying, maybe you did, but saying that Tilman Fertitta is currently a mobster.
No, we just say that because we have death wishes.
That's great. I'm happy for you.
No, basically, it's just that it is interesting that somebody who is a completely legitimate businessman who intentionally tries to work, again, on the waterfront all the time, and has also entered the casino business, that there's nothing at all to do with coming from a family that used to operate illegal casinos in Galveston, Texas.
I guess I should just make it... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go.
I just want to make it clear, when we say he's in the mafia, we're of course talking about the CNBC mafia, led by Lou Dobbs and Jim Cramer.
I thought you guys meant like the mafia.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Inarguable. Yeah. So I don't. It seems to me also like one thing I've been reflecting on Tilman Fertitta somewhat as I'm say gardening or taking my dog for a walk, and this is a weird thing to think about, but I know you know what I'm talking about. But one of the things is like okay, let's say he's clean. Let's say that he's from this family. No one can help where they were born, and he just now runs a stage of steakhouses and shrimp companies and whatever. And wouldn't it make sense to just repudiate the mob?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you're dealing with this. Wouldn't you just do the most incredible job of saying, like, I was so pissed at my uncle, cousin, blah, 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 and, never wanted to do that. And this is why I signed this decree here on this day in Houston or whatever. But there's nothing like that. I haven't seen anything like that.
No, actually, it feels like instead he's buying up tons of property in his family's old mafia stronghold and trying very hard to get gambling there.
And giving tons of money to the police.
Yeah. Really a lot of money to the police.
A lot of money to the police. And, and I don't know. Like, I don't know what to make of that. Like, I heard about that actually long before I heard about his family history. And I was like, oh, that's weird, I guess. Like, I think Mark Cuban gives as much money to the police, too. It isn't necessarily ringing an alarm bell for me.
Well, he's in the broadcast.com mafia, so it's okay.
Oh, so that would mean, yeah, that makes sense. But then, going back and reading, I wonder if I can find this. Hold on. I'm going to cite an actual source.
All right, I'll get a joke off real quick.
This might be the first time on this podcast, by the way.
Thinking about Mark Cuban giving a lot of money to the police makes me think, oh yeah, I guess Shark Tank sort of is like the mafia, where they're like, yeah, I'll give you this money for 20% of your business for the rest of your life.
You got to take this offer right now. We'll leave it.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, here's the deal. Now I'm reading from Gary Cartwright in Texas Monthly, and he's saying that basically this is now talking about 100 years ago. Walter Johnston, the longtime police commissioner, bragged he was on the payroll of 46 whorehouses. This is all in Galveston. Frank Bianchi, who was the sheriff of Galveston from 33 to 57, explained to State Investigative Committee that the reason he had never raided the Bolognese was because it was a private club and he was a member. Occasionally, the Texas Rangers, in those days effectively the governor's private police force, swept down from the mainland and smashed a few slot machines. But not one of Maceo's clubs was ever closed for long. The skinny was that the family had close contacts in the governor's office by which they were warned of approaching trouble. Gambling paraphernalia at the Bolognese was designed to convert into billiard and bridge tables, so that by the time the Rangers arrived, all they found were some well-dressed patrons playing bridge and sipping soft drinks.
That seems so cartoonish to
America
me.
America was
that
so
like
cool.
An alarm
what a cool country.
Just them turning the tables over and like, nope, just playing billiards here.
You have to do it in a voice, right? They can't possibly have spoken in normal voices when the Rangers arrive. Heck no! Yeah.
So, excuse me. Sean, you wrote a little outline here for us to go over. Why don't you and Henry walk us through some of the things that stuck out to you?
So I was impressed, and this seems like something that Tilman would normally brag about, that Galveston had the most prostitutes per capita in the world. And that seems like a stat that would maybe come up on Billionaire Buyer.
Do you remember the number? One hooker for how many Galveston residents?
It was something like 1 for 61, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I hear it. Chicago was only 1 for every 430. Paris, a joke, at 1 to 481. And Shanghai 1 to 130. So yeah, Galveston.
Wow.
The worldwide capital. So the original guys are there's not a Fertitta until I think his grandmother Mary is one of the guys. Is that? Let me look at the family tree real quick.
It's pretty complicated. Yeah, there's for sure the early days of Galveston mob, as discussed in Texas Monthly and others, was primarily Maceos.
That's right.
And then which are not in this family tree. But one of the Maceos married his great grandfather, Joseph Francis Fertitta. And then but then all of these many of the next generation were integrated into the Maceos of running Galveston. And then when the Maceos got busted by the Rangers, the Fertittas took over. But I think it wasn't as lucrative anymore. And then some of them moved to Vegas.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. And basically everyone who's a Frank Jr. or a Frank the Third or Frank Three Sticks Fertitta.
Yes.
Those guys are all involved in some level of casino operation. Like I'm not totally sure how rich you have to be able to start and operate a casino in an above the board way. Because there's Frank, this is Frank Fertitta Jr. The legend is he works his way up from being a pit boss and working, I mean, I guess it's something being a dealer before that, and opens a casino on the Strip, which I guess is designed for casino employees. So it was like a little bit off the Strip in the desert, but it was.
Is this the Palace Station?
This is the Palace
That's
Station.
Frank. Yeah. Well, Sean, the big claim to fame for the Palace Station, right?
What is that?
That's where OJ got arrested for kidnapping those memorabilia guys.
Oh,
that was at the Palace Station. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that. That's so cool.
The other thing about the Palace Station is weirdly, there's a restaurant in the Palace Station. I don't know what they do, but it's like David Chang's favorite place to eat in Las Vegas. They do like a weird. It's like some kind of Asian oyster thing because they catered to the dealers and stuff. So it's like Vietnamese food or something like that.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. And I guess the idea is that, they basically not very profitable to be bribing everybody and having illegal gambling when there's a giant city with legal gambling starting in, the 50s, basically. So yeah, they're dealers and everybody leaves. But before that, they basically are running these casinos, running whorehouses, bootlegging, and then they have a vigilante group called Rose's Night Riders.
Oh, God. I'm sure they weren't racist at all.
Well, and there's a little whisper of slavery. Galveston was a slavery port.
Yeah.
And I didn't connect to the Fertittas directly that I could see, but like the three families that ran the island before the Macios and Fertittas were definitely involved in like cotton and banking, and this is where Juneteenth happened, was in Galveston, because that was where you would go. Like that's the boat sailed up there to say, hey, we're stopping slavery.
Yeah, a lot of slavery adjacent businesses.
Yeah.
So yeah, the one that was, I mean, and so yeah, the Fertittas take over, and I get the argument that this, what happened in the 1920s or the 1930s, that doesn't necessarily affect what's happening now. But the Frank Fertitta thing is in the 70s. It's not really that long ago, and apparently the implication is he's basically he gets to have this casino because he's staked by the Kansas City mob, and he's working with a guy who's developed this very sophisticated way of skimming off the casinos for the mob.
Very cool.
Which again, we're very much like the movie Casino again.
Yeah, I mean that is legit. Like that. What's his name? Who? Nicholas Pileggi, right? Like, he apparently interviewed all these people, and this is the Argent Corporation, and I guess it's like of all the mafia things that have happened in Vegas, this is the one that was really documented, and the people, because this guy, Carl Thomas, right? Carl Thomas was he ratted on everybody, and all those people went to prison. So it's the one, like, actually, there's the Mob Museum in Vegas has a podcast where they, with the Las Vegas Review Journal, and they tell these mob stories. This is the one that they go really deep on because it's the one where you can't get sued for talking about it because it's like the best established one. Like they go way into detail, and but interestingly, like Carl Thomas ratted on every single person involved. Imagine this: like it's the Chicago crime family, the Kansas City, the two other cities, and the people in Vegas itself. But he wouldn't say, he pled the fifth on the matter of Fertitta.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but it sounds scary. Right?
It's very intimidating. And so his son is still the CEO of Station Casinos, which I guess is a chain. There's a bunch of them, but
I went to the
totally
movies
sure.
at Texas Station last time I was in Vegas because I ran out of money the last day I was there.
Was it nice?
No, it was not nice at all. They're pretty dingy, I would say. They're off for the most part. They're sort of off, even like so in downtown. I think it's It's not Palace. It's the other one. There's like Palace Station. There's like California Station. I think is the one that's like off of downtown. Even like they're not even where like the nice casinos are. But they just
came out of bankruptcy, and they're actually I think there are lawsuits about it because the debtors were like, "Whoa, this is like the I think it's even one more generation down." They're basically like, yeah, these guys just trying to use the bankruptcy to get out a bunch of debt and keep control at a disadvantage to us, the investors. So
yeah, I mean,
everybody's pissed. Yeah,
it's very shady because they take the place they take the company private, with just like a huge amount of debt assumed, and they're bankrupt like 2.5 years later, and they owe all these people money. And
isn't
basically
Tilman
they just
trying to do that with Caesars currently, constantly? Isn't he always trying to buy Caesars with his weird leveraged debt money?
Yeah, he wasn't able to do it in his last attempt, but it's weird because he's incredibly leveraged with the Rockets too. He bought the team for $2.2 billion. I don't totally understand how it worked to sell bonds in the Rockets, but that's, high level banking stuff. But he basically bought a team for $2.2 billion by putting $300 million down.
Yeah, that's a weird deal. And there's some Deutsche Bank money in there.
Who also is a giant investor in the Station's Casino Corporation now.
Oh, really?
They own like 25% of it. And eventually they had another, I don't know how you have like a second IPO, but maybe you can do it after you've gone through bankruptcy. But they had an IPO about 4 years ago. So now you can actually buy stock in the Station's casino chain on the New York Stock Exchange, which seems very questionable. And also, his Frank Fertitta III also owns the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
Yeah, that was the next thing I was going to bring up. Which, I would say the beginnings of Ultimate Fighting, it's more legitimate now, but the beginnings of it was like, yeah, of course, you're in the mob, you own casinos, and boxing has gotten a little too clean, so you've got to create another sport you can fix constantly.
Well, and it used to be very underground and also a very war-friendly business.
Yeah.
War friendly.
It actually
That's not a real word. War
It actually started out they would pay the SEALs to fight each other.
Wait, really?
No.
And sometimes I can't tell if I'm on a mob podcast or a comedy podcast.
But the reason they were able to make a killing with UFC is that Lorenzo Fertitta used to be in the Nevada State Athletic Commission. And so until 2001, you couldn't get licensed for an Ultimate Fight in Nevada. But once Fertitta basically used his connections, they suddenly got sanctioned, and it became so much more lucrative.
Wow.
Because they could start doing pay-per-views and just, they could have matches at casinos, which is the ideal for fights, I guess.
So the central question for me was like, why would this in a league that actually does have a lot of people lining up to pay $2.2 billion for the Rockets? Like, why would they pick this owner? Just seems such a weird choice. And I actually an earlier draft of the story had several paragraphs that I ended up deleting because it just seemed kind of weird. But here's my guess. Based on nothing. This is 2017. In 2016, the NBA became really actively involved in, the effort to legalize sports gambling in the U.S. And I think in 2017 they approved someone with good connections in that industry, right? And then in 2018 they got the Supreme Court ruling, and now they're really hoping to cash in and have a big amount of income from legalized sports gambling in the U.S. So I wonder if maybe Tilman's whatever, I don't know exactly what he would be offering here, but his experience in the gambling world might actually be something that appeals to the other owners.
Oh, yeah, boy. And I mean, especially if they ever want to start expanding their efforts in Las Vegas, it's probably very nice to have connected people at the top levels of, the athletic commissions.
Is there any way we can get Jordan Belfort to own a team?
Why not?
The Timberwolves of Wall Street.
Yeah, it's a weird old world, man. I mean, I just like basketball, and I was like, let me just cover this sport that I like. And next thing you know, I'm learning about the craziest. I've learned a lot about Deutsche Bank. You know what I mean? I'm like, why do I have to know about Deutsche Bank to like basketball? What's the deal? But I feel like I'm cheating. If I don't look into it, right? It's we should know who runs the dang sport at some point.
Right. Man. That's the weird thing to me. I mean, you probably don't actually want to talk about this very much, but I do think there's a certain strain in basketball reporting now where
total and complete horseshit. Is that what you were going to say?
I was going to say, yeah, but I was going to say where access matters more than facts, so you kind of don't report stuff in fear of being able to tweet out a trade 2 days before it happens, maybe. I mean, I'm not pointing at someone specifically. I'm just saying, it seems to me that there are some, how do I put it, lines being blurred a little bit, but you don't have to say anything, Henry, because I'm sure you don't want to offend any of your friends.
No, this is come on. I am clearly on one side of this. I am. It makes me sick, to be totally honest. It's an epidemic. It used to be an annoyance, and now it's a little bit like Hollywood media, right? Mm-hmm. So in Hollywood media, you basically need to go sit in George Clooney's house or whatever, and if you can't, then you're garbage.
And you have to talk about what he ate for lunch. It's he had a salad with a shallot vinaigrette.
Yeah. And the interior decoration is really cool, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Not too much. It's tasteful. Yeah. But yeah, so there's this, Clooney, if someone are in the chain of getting to Clooney's living room, someone says oh, hey, of course you're not going to mention blank, right? Then, boy, you have a hard choice to make there. Or maybe you don't have a hard choice to make. You say, oh, of course, right? So I've been in this situation a million times, and you have to, now we're going to talk weird media theory crap, but I have described this. I used to be in charge of all the people at ESPN.com cover the NBA, right? And I feel like it's a 3-party negotiation. It's you, the source, and the readers who are not in the room, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to, you can't forget them, right? Well, I think we're forgetting them.
Yeah.
We have a job to do there. And I wrote memos about this. It would be unethical if they leaked, but if somebody leaked them, I'd love that. I'm 100% worried about this sports media industry. I think I can make a case that as of 2020, we don't really cover the league in the sense that Thomas Jefferson talks about the role of the media in being this important part of how things run. I don't know if the league's really even covered that way. Adam Silver's talked for 22 total minutes since the pandemic started and made all these decisions, and pretty much the media is just well, they said they got it. They're good. We're all set, so we're good. That's not how it's supposed to work. We're also in a golden age of journalism outside of sports, where some of these things that are happening at the Atlantic or the New York Times are just incredible, I think. But
we actually have Ken Klippenstein coming on tomorrow to tell us about FOIA requests.
I love that kind of stuff. Yeah.
We're gonna see if we can make a FOIA request to see if that lottery was fixed. The famous frozen envelope. That's what we're literally talking to Ken for.
We're trying to figure out what could possibly expose an NBA conspiracy just via the magic of the Freedom of Information Act.
I did one for blanking on. I sent in like 3 or 4 for just like players from the first 50 years of the NBA, and ended up getting a ton of stuff back.
That's
awesome.
Wilt Chamberlain had a huge FBI file.
Of course,
that is not a surprise. Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty boring, but they were definitely like keeping tabs on Wilt Chamberlain. Like, oh my gosh.
They were like, actually, he only had sex with 9,000 women.
Joke. I think I may have dragged you off of your outline, though. I don't want to.
No, you're good.
Oh, no, that's great.
This is perfect. So the one thing Sean and I, so we used your another one of your articles about billionaires being problematic.
I wanted to.
Oh, go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you want to ask?
Can I ask one more? Sorry, I just have one more Tilman question that I want to ask before we move on. It seems crazy that this guy has been cash poor for so long. And I don't totally understand how the vetting process works in the NBA. Obviously, I think that gambling angle is legit. And maybe it's because he's been a minority owner of the Rockets for so long. But he was getting sued 30 years ago for, being $10 million in debt. And now he still seems like he's in a giant amount of debt. And for whatever reason, there doesn't seem to be any pressure except among, annoyed Rocket fans who want them to pay the luxury tax. It doesn't seem like a lot of people think that is a big problem. And it feels like it's a pretty big problem.
He's willing to pay the luxury tax. It's just an accident that they keep getting out of it.
They keep forgetting. Also, just for I also want to mention that just for the times we're in right now, Tilman Fertitta was a Tiger King as well. He owned a bunch of white tigers that were in the Galveston boardwalk.
I do want to ask a question about Fertittaville. There was a place called Fertittaville. That's my question.
No, I think that's a youth. I think they were just worried that Galveston was owning too much of it.
Okay, just making sure. I think that's all.
Yeah.
But it is kind of, the description does seem like it's like Pottersville in It's a Wonderful Life. Just like lots of casinos.
Did you see somebody like when I tweeted out this story, like one of the responses was like, I went there and it was totally trashy. Just didn't like it. Like the 8 F+ on the architecture was basically the review. But I respect that. So to your point about he's been cash poor for a long time, it is a great question. I have had a conversation with a guy who's a current investor in an NBA team, and he said to me that he thinks the way the NBA rules are now, private ownership might be done. Meaning, the specific reason because the NBA has changed the rules to make it so that basically everyone has to be Steve Ballmer. The price will be super high, which we just know. But then they want one clear majority owner who can actually pay for it without pay cash for it. And there just aren't that many people left who have that kind of money.
Well, and they refuse to sell to Larry Ellison, so that knocks another one out.
Why did they refuse that? I don't know. What's the deal there?
He's a jerk, but I don't know. Who knows?
Who isn't a jerk?
Exactly.
Come on,
every billionaire's a jerk.
Yeah. But somehow this guy who has as you said, he put in, was it 300 million? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
300 million, yeah.
That's and not supposed to happen. Yeah.
Especially when he was also borrowing almost 300 million from the guy he was buying the team from.
And just to be clear, the reason this is supposed to be like this, right, is they want one clear decision maker. But if Tilman Fertitta owes somebody $1 billion, and it's secured by the rockets, then and this person could, for all we know, be, off wherever offshore money comes from, right? There's Deutsche Bank, who knows, right? There are people out there who could conceivably pick up the phone and call Tilman and tell him what to do, which means the NBA's board of governors is being influenced outside the room, right? Which is not what you want, right? So there are very good reasons. This is the kind of stuff, right? I mean, it's a different level of the game, but this is why Sally Yates freaks out when she sees the transcripts of Michael Flynn telling Ambassador Kislyak that they'll relax the sanctions, blah, blah, blah. The reason is now Flynn isn't representing the U.S. anymore because the Russians know this happened and they can make him do stuff, right? Anyway, so Tilman's they don't want people in debt, and they've had other structures in Milwaukee. Or in Golden State, right? There are really two primary owners,
right?
Or in Philadelphia. And that's the other way you'd get around the high price, but it's problematic, right? It's this is a marriage that can go awry. Right?
I would argue, at least using Golden State, it would be less problematic because then there could only be one owner to shove a player during a finals game.
Yeah, and
Great point.
I would also say that it seems somewhat dangerous that you've got so many guys from private equity firms, but a lot of guys that just specialized in buying things that are undervalued and kind of loading them up with debt and stripping them of their assets. That also feels like not the mentality you want for a league owner necessarily. And that's probably 6 of the 30 owners have that background. It's the Pistons, the Hawks, the Sixers. There's more, but yeah. Just it's an odd. I know they're rich enough. I know they're billionaires, but when you look at the things they buy, and that it's sort of Josh Harris is a master of buying junk bonds and then basically taking companies into bankruptcy and bringing them out and making them a little more valuable. But that seems not ideal. That the guy's really good at navigating bankruptcy,
Or stripping things for parts to sell for money.
Right.
That's the opposite as a fan of what you'd want your owner to do to your basketball team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, how much is it worth? So let's say that you're Davis Stern in that case, and you're yeah, that's a little worrisome, but they're paying 30% more, 40%. At some point, you're okay. Right?
Yeah, totally. Well, and you're helping the guy who's already in the club exit, in the owners club. Yeah. So it's interesting how many owners are associated. Speaking of private equity, that are associated with Michael Milken's old firm.
Oh, I love that you're bringing this up. This is my favorite topic right here.
This is I was shocked when we were looking into it. So we were inspired. We did an episode, very, very speculative, not serious at all, just speculating what owners hypothetically might have flown on a plane with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
And
not a plane, the plane.
The plane. But again, just allegedly, speculatively, we don't know anything about it. But a lot of people that are now NBA owners are affiliated with a lot of them directly work for this firm, Apollo Global Management, but all of these people came out of this firm called Drexel Burnham Lambert, which you would know, which is famous for junk bond king Michael Milken,
who I've delivered Chinese food to. Weirdly,
wait, really?
Yeah. Well, to
what
his
did he
house.
order?
It was your standard Americanized Chinese food. It's
that doesn't sound like Michael Milken at all. I think you at the wrong house. That sounds completely wrong.
I think it was for the help, if I'm being honest. I think it was for the security guard being outside. But it was Michael Milken's house in Beverly Hills. I'm going to say second worst person I've ever delivered Chinese food to. The first, of course, being Gene Simmons from Kiss. All right.
Yeah, so Michael Milken's whole thing was basically figuring out a way to do securities fraud on a very massive scale in the late 80s, and their old firm, Drexel Burnham Lambert, ended up just dissolving basically in the wake of I think it had to do with the massive fines they got, but it doesn't seem like it really affected any of the other people that were like, no one's been tainted by their association, which to me is also weird. Mm-hmm. But maybe a lot of people on Wall Street kind of don't really think Michael Milken did anything wrong. That's what I assume, because he seems to have not had trouble coming back into society, and he's like on baseball telecasts all the time with his cancer charity. But yeah, basically guys from Drexel Burnham started Apollo Global Management, which is where Josh Harris works. And then the Hawks owner, Anthony Ressler, was also a Drexel Burnham guy who co-founded Apollo with this guy named Leon Black, who's married to Ressler's sister. And this guy was specifically known as Michael Milken's right-hand man.
Well, wasn't Leon Black also specifically known for being Jeffrey Epstein's best friend?
He was working with Jeffrey Epstein until at least 2015. He donated $10 million to some Epstein Foundation then. And it seems like they were basically continuing to communicate. And the firm denies that they did anything but listen to his tax strategy recommendations. Mm-hmm. But it's pretty shady. Also, the crazy Leon Black has a crazy background. His father used to run the United Fruit Company when it was called United Brands. Joey, do you know anything about the United Fruit Company?
I do not. Henry, do you?
Yeah. Oh, I love this topic. Yeah. So just keep talking though, so you can get sued, not me.
Right. There's just like a litany of crazy stories about just mistreating banana farmers basically in Central America. There's part of it.
Wait, can I tell this part? Okay, it's about so like legit, no question, well documented. Like the CIA did a lot of things through United Fruit.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like a CIA fake company name, so just like the laziest possible. United Fruit. It's a fruit company. Who cares?
But they were basically like using the power of business. They basically did like overthrow governments in Central America,
right.
and
they absolutely did. Yeah.
And like I think I'm like a tremendous number of people who worked in the White House had like previously worked at United Fruit and this kind of stuff. I think it's and then my understanding is that Eli Black, Leon Black's dad, like was a clever investor and bought this big company thinking, from whoever ran it when it was really active, to say he took it over and found it to be not what it seemed to be, found it to be not as successful as he thought it was, and was starting to feel the pinch of the financial decisions he'd made, and then leapt out of a window that some people think he couldn't have possibly broken with his briefcase, which is a story of what he did. But anyway, so something happened. He had a unfortunate jumping out of like the 40th story window of the Pan Am building in Manhattan.
Death. It's apparently the inspiration for that scene in Hudsucker.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah. And so the company was worth way less than it seemed to, possibly because, I don't know, it was being used as kind of a CIA front. That seems plausible. But also, he got caught bribing some government official in Honduras, like I think it was like 1.25 million. So it was either the worthlessness of the company or the impending federal investigation. So this is, I mean, it's so weird to me that people just sort of like, well, I guess his dad had a rough day, and like that it, I don't know, that this guy is again a very trusted financial guy, despite all of these very questionable associations with people, like famous criminals.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and they, and not to get too crazy, but the Russia Direct Investment Fund, right? So this is the Kirill Dmitriev who's the guy who was at the secret meeting in the Seychelles with Eric Prince, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
Boy.
Kirill Dmitriev went to like Stanford Business School. He's a really brilliant guy, but he's like, like a tightly affiliated with the Kremlin guy. He forms this Russia Direct Investment Fund. The idea is to kind of like make a lot of Putin affiliated investments that are like respectable and above board, and they end up kind of putting together this international panel of superstar investors. And it's one of them is Leon Black. Another one, I think I'm right in saying, is Leon Black. Is the boss, co-founder of one of the 76ers current owners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other boss is Steven Schwartzman, who's also on the Russian Direct Investment Fund, right? So,
oh my God, yeah.
So that's, I don't know what to make of that. But and I'll tell you one other thing is when Apollo was formed. Well, so when Drexel and Lambert got it, it's the only at that time, I think maybe still, it's the only Wall Street like bank that's ever gone out of business. And and
like
Michael Milken went to prison.
Brothers, basically.
Oh, okay, Solomon Brothers, yeah, right. And then the people were cast adrift. They're very talented. They had done, Michael Milken is a genius and did figure out a bunch of stuff. And they had a sort of a system going, right, where they would like, one guy was raising a bond issue and they would get the rest of the posse to invest in it, and they'd overinvest. So they'd have kind of too much money, then they get you invest in the next one, and on and on and on. And through very clever methods and super hard work and everything. But they were now seen as pariahs for a little while. But Leon Black was unique in that he had better connections and somehow quickly was able to raise a bunch of money for what's now Apollo Global, and was then Apollo Global too. And that was like the key thing. And so the ones who were on the Apollo train now have risen to this, like Apollo is just a behemoth now.
Yeah.
So I think that was like the key moment, like where did this money come from? Right. And then these people who were, it seems like there was a moment there where the key skill on Wall Street became raising vast amounts of money from not the traditional sources.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, and I think
So
it's
Leon was good at
also, while we were doing this connecting, besides Apollo, and so that's the Hawks and the Sixers, right, Sean? We also
Yes. Well, actually, I want to mention the other Sixers owner just real quickly. He is also affiliated with Wes Edens from the Bucks. He has a very similar company called the Blackstone Group, and it's like his portfolio is like a who's who of bad companies. So they own SeaWorld. So they're dolphin abusers. They own Motel 6, which just got fined $20 million for giving ICE their guest list without any warrants. They're giant Trump donors. They own multiple companies in Brazil that have been actively burning down portions of the rainforest. And they also bought the mortgage to the World Trade Center like 10 months before 9/11. So it's just like every possible conspiracy theory the Blackstone Group is involved in, and they're
called
like
the Blackstone group, which is like that's who is like trying to murder Jason Bourne.
Yeah. And so Wes Edens is from a firm called BlackRock.
Oh, you mean Wes Edens from the Sex Dungeon lawsuit?
From the Sex
Dungeon. That's how I know
lawsuit.
him. Yeah.
And so his firm got 50% of their startup from Blackstone. So it's a lot of guys who are really connected to each other too.
There's a lot of for sure. I totally agree, and I think you could probably find, if you put them on a map, right? Like you'd find that they're in the same place at the same time. A lot of MBA, a lot of these people who run this small group of firms, and many of them have overlapping business interests with Trump.
Well, and then also,
and a lot of them are from Wharton. So it makes
a lot of them are from Wharton. A lot of them. Yep.
And then also don't forget Ghislaine Maxwell was on Paul Allen's boat. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh my God.
My favorite of these shady owners is Gail Benson. because her crimes are low level, or quote unquote alleged crimes are so much lower level than these guys, but they're still bad. So Gail Benson, the owner of the Saints, was involved in 20 civil lawsuits over a 13-year period starting in 1987 for her home renovation business.
What?
Yeah, at one point she was arrested and charged with theft of furniture from a client. She had both state and federal tax liens against her business for failure to pay taxes. And then also in 89, Gailbird Interiors was the employees filed lawsuits against her because she refused to pay them and was settled out of court. And also Tom Benson's personal assistant sued her for being a racist against him. He was an African American man, and sure, it's not junk bond sales and Jeffrey Epstein, but even the widow of a rich man is not necessarily a very good person. Is all.
What happened with the lawsuit? The racism. Lawsuit,
they settled out of court.
Okay. Wow, but Anthony Davis is the jerk, right? Because he wanted to go somewhere else.
Yeah,
right. She's just a good testament that you don't actually have to have a rich father to commit terrible crimes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you can build yourself up into those felonies by your bootstraps.
Okay, actually, I have that wrong. So an NFL, who are cleaner than the courts. The NFL, they should definitely be arbitrating laws and racism lawsuits.
For sure.
Ruled in favor of Henry against the Saints on the labor complaint and gave him overtime pay and a contractual payout for his dismissal and attorney's fees, but against Henry on the claims of racism, which I'm sure had nothing to do with the fact that maybe that would taint an NFL owner.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good one. I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah. Anyway, billionaires
what
are
about
weird.
What about the Kushner family?
Oh, well, what about the Kushner family, Henry?
They own part of the Grizzlies.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And they're they might be some of the most aggressive slumlords in America.
Yeah, and you know about the whole diner thing, right?
I don't think I do.
I don't think I do either.
So this is one of the great stories. So there, something was happening where Chris Christie, as U.S. attorney in New Jersey, was investigating some Kushner family business, and there was this suggestion that maybe some members of the family were participating or helping him along, and there was a lot of anxiety about this. And at some point, somebody wants to deliver a message to somebody, and anyway, Charles Kushner, Jared Kushner's dad, ended up going to prison for this. But the thing he did was arranged for a prostitute to show up at the diner that I forget, one of his relatives went to this diner, had a prostitute meet him, and then eventually she lured him into a nearby motel where there were hidden cameras, and then he delivered the video of that to that man's wife, who I think it was Charles Kushner's sister, and in kind of a blackmail effort.
To try to get him not to testify, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Oh, and the great thing is, it's called the Time to Eat Diner, which is such a wholesome name.
It's right near where I live, to be honest. I've driven by the Time to Eat Diner 1,000 times.
It looks kind of good, I have to say.
I've never been in, to be honest. My wife went to a meeting there once, and I was like, ooh, I don't know.
It feels like it's like eating at the restaurant Rick Pitino had his affair in. You know what I mean? Where it just it doesn't matter how good the food is.
Oh, yeah. Basketball has so many sordid characters. Oh, my God. What the hell?
And then we also, of course, have not mentioned the war criminals, the DeVosses. We don't even need to really get into that, but
it's so elaborate
yeah.
that like even their primary like legit business is super shady.
Mm-hmm.
Like Amway is one of just the the fundamentals of the company. The upfront parts of the company are terrible.
Amway is
and then
both
there's also
somehow a cult and a pyramid scheme.
Clever.
And then it's like, private mercenary force. Why not? Diverting public education money to private schools, and just they appear to be just loathed in the state of Michigan at this point, and yet are still just giant donors. Mm-hmm. So,
well, they've been funding some of these, people with guns hanging around state capitals, right? Like they've funded some of the protests. Absolutely crazy. And this is a fun little like riddle me this, but when Eric Prince testified before I think a House Intelligence Committee, you can read the transcripts. I take it back. It wasn't a House. It was a Senate. Anyway, he has testified in a way several times in this sort of whole Trump, Mueller, etc. But some of them you can read online, and there's a part where they say, look, you need to turn over all of the communications you have with Russians. And he says, okay. Now he's as you notice, he's known as like a guy who travels with arms and all sorts of nefarious military things. And he turns over 20 odd emails with the then like high-ranking executive of the Brooklyn Nets, Christophe Charlier.
Oh,
who's not actually Russian. But he did have a board seat on Rusal, which was kind of like Prokhorov owned part of Rusal at that time and had a board seat, and Christophe held his position or whatever. But yeah, so to Eric Prince, this was the Russian that he knew was like another NBA guy. So this is like it's NBA on both sides of this deal. Mm-hmm. And then Rusal ended up being involved in, well, we don't have time.
You know what? I think that's the perfect place to end our segment here. Henry.
Killed it.
Thank you so much for coming on. Everyone, subscribe to TrueHoop.com. Is there anything else you would like to plug?
Oh, like a brand of underwear I really enjoy.
Whatever you want to do. It's totally up to you. We're comedians, so it's all about plugs. At the end of the show.
Plugs are great. Yeah. Oh, I wish I were ready to really. Yeah. Oh, okay. I got one. So, do you guys know who David Epstein is?
No.
David Epstein. He's absolutely brilliant. He's the author of Range, a recent bestseller, and his earlier book was The Sports Gene. He's literally one of those.
I did read The Sports Gene. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So that's the first plug, but it's a Russian nesting doll of plugs because I know David personally, and we run together sometimes, and he's very level-headed, brilliant guy, but he loses his mind for task performance wear. TASC. I am not getting paid for this. But he's like, this is like you can get really sweaty in it and you don't smell bad. So if you go for a run and then you have to duck into the store or whatever, you're not going to offend anybody. And he was telling me it's made in New Orleans out of some weird, I think it's made of bamboo and something else. And so he gave me the hard sell. And eventually I bought like a shirt, and true enough, amazing. And then for Father's Day, I got a pair of shorts, and now I'm like, this is what I want to plug. I don't know. It's made out of the future. I don't know what the fabric is, but it's extremely comfortable and it just doesn't stink. So how about that? There's a plug.
It's a great plug.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sean,
I feel like a real podcast because we did that.
Yeah, I feel good.
That's perfect. Thanks so much for coming on, Henry. We'll have you on anytime you want to talk.
Yeah.
About anything. Come, just let us know. Our door is open for old True Hoop Henry. Thanks a lot.
Wait till I do 90 minutes on performance wear.
Yeah, we're going to get to the bottom of Sweatwick technology next
we are. Totally. All right, thank you guys.
Thanks, Henry.
Take care.
That was Henry, and that was Tilman Time, and that's our show. Sean, anything you want to plug? Any lifestyle brands?
Any lifestyle brands? I personally work out wearing some basketball shorts that I bought from Ross Dress for Less in San Francisco, something like 15 years ago. They're not attractive, but have they fallen apart once? No. I've gotten so much use out of these $9 basketball shorts. And also I have an article. I'll have a thing on Yardbarker, a what if about if the Clippers had not traded the number 1 pick that became Kyrie Irving. And then later this week, I'm going to have a piece about the weirdest deferred money contracts in sports in honor of Bobby Bonilla Day.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then as for me, you can always follow me on Twitter at Frankie Muniz, where I haven't tweeted in quite a while, and frankly, it's making me nervous. But on May 25th, on May 25th, I tweeted, "It's gonna be 112 degrees on Friday." I almost forgot, Sean. Did you write a song tonight?
Yeah, this is the first time. I can't believe it's taken this long. I wrote a song about my other favorite NBA writer besides Henry Abbott.
Brian Windhorst,
well, not writer,
of course.
but NBA expert.
Yeah.
It's about Brian Windhorst,
Yeah.
and it's called Aggregate.
Great. Trust the process.
Trust the process.
And shut it down. Let's go to Fertittaville with the Maceo family.
Yeah, horse.
It was a trade deadline. Shim's in the panic room. Wendy was on the set, trying to pursue some news on the deals so I can get some scoop. Never will reveal the J.R. Smith soup. Just watch Kenny and Chuck on TNT on a mission trying to find Mr. Wendy B. About to drink 1/3 of an MGD. Z-Lo's gritting sources anonymity. So I grabbed my phone while Rachel was debating. I hit the wrong button and it started updating. I look at the screen, said 4% done. I turned to Bond Temps and said, damn, I'm sunk. Trying to think of 10 more things that I think I like. Wendy's bone is crashing like Jay Williams on a bike. On to bigger, better things than court design. Get my old BlackBerry and put it online. I'm getting scooped. I'm losing to Chris Haynes. I'm disappearing. Just like David Blaine, I'll lose my job. I'll lose my shoe deal. I look up and Woj says they're trading Bradley Beal. They got Wendy freezing up and Paul Pierce is around. Gonna jump in there and bust like Kwame Brown. Drop an analytic knowledge about team rebound. And I fell asleep trying to watch Black Hawk Down. They got sources with sources. The trade is going down. It don't make sense. The cap is going down. To Omaha I'll fly. It's a panic attack. They look to the wings and I see my homie Zach. Salaries don't match. Don't have the cap space. CBA rules about to put egg on Woj's face. Joe Harris texted me he's gonna sign for 8. Z-Lo and Wendy B are gonna aggregate. Funny story, when Jerome James hit me in the face with a basketball, Michael McDonald helped me up. I took him to the low post, I let my notebook explode. Now I'm switching my mind back into beer mode. Everyone on the jump knows they got wrecked, so I grab a German beer, I say, what up, X? Now Zach grabbed a beer, he'll only drink half, but before my own died, I had news about Shaq. Shut up, do not blog. Don't want you to quote me, ain't heard it from Wendy. Forget what you heard, I'm still a stat nerd, but I love watching film the most. It's how I spend my time when I'm on the Croatian coast. Thinking about Luke Walton on stars, I thought, ooh, I'm changing that name. Because he got me tooed and he don't coach good, it's just not the same. I got a belly full of hops and I'm away from my spouse. The next stop is Kevin Arnowitz's house. Zach, you know what I keep forgetting? How delicious a sunbasket meal can be, cooked in your own home. They deliver it right to your house. I'm tweeting, but only 'cause they make me. Don't understand a single Drake meme. Makes me feel like I have a brain tumor. A rumor is a fact and a fact is a rumor. Quotes, facts, reacts, commentary. Where truth is checked, and blue checks give truth. If you know Lexi Lowe, you don't want to step to this. It's the Lowe Post era podcasting about Luka Doncic. And if you drink like I drink, then there's Sam Adams in the fridge. And if your wife is Croatian, then never talk about your kids.